Enver Hoxha was born on October 16, 1908, in the city of Gjirokastër in southern Albania. His family belonged to the Betashi Muslim community, a sect that was widespread in the region, though his upbringing was not strictly religious. His father, Halil Hoxha, was a cloth merchant who traveled frequently to the United States and France for business. His mother, Jilihan, came from a modest family background. The family was not particularly wealthy, but they were respected in their community. Young Enver grew up in a period of instability. Albania had just declared independence from the Ottoman Empire in 1912, and the following years were marked by wars, occupations, and political uncertainty. This environment shaped his view of the world and his desire for a strong, independent Albanian state. As a boy, Hoxha attended primary school in Gjirokastër before moving to Tirana, the capital, where he attended the National Lycée. He proved to be intelligent and disciplined, with a talent for writing and rhetoric. In 1930, with the help of a government scholarship, he traveled to France to study natural sciences at the University of Montpellier. However, he did not complete his degree there, as he became more interested in political movements and revolutionary ideas than in his studies. In Paris, he was introduced to leftist circles, read Marxist literature, and began sympathizing with communism. Later, he moved to Belgium and enrolled at the University of Brussels, but again his focus remained on political activism. His time in France and Belgium coincided with the rise of fascism in Europe. He observed the growing strength of Adolf Hitler in Germany and Benito Mussolini in Italy, and he saw how authoritarian regimes were taking hold of the continent. At the same time, he watched the struggle of leftist movements, including communists and socialists, who opposed fascism. These experiences convinced him that Albania needed a strong ideological path to protect itself from foreign domination and internal weakness. After several years abroad, in 1936, Hoxha returned to Albania. He secured a teaching post at the Lycée of course, where he taught French. It was during this time that he began to build connections with young Albanian intellectuals and quietly spread his Marxist views among them. In 1939, Albania was invaded by fascist Italy. Mussolini sought to add Albania to his empire, and the invasion was swift. King Zog, the Albanian monarch, fled into exile, and Albania was absorbed into the Italian system. For Hoxha, this was a turning point. He lost his teaching position because he refused to join the official fascist party. Instead, he gravitated toward underground networks that resisted occupation. He moved to Tirana and opened a small tobacco shop, which served as a cover for meetings with fellow leftists and activists. The Second World War intensified resistance movements across the Balkans, and Albania became a battleground between occupiers and various resistance groups. In 1941, the Communist Party of Albania was formed, with strong support from the Yugoslav communists. Enver Hoxha quickly rose to prominence within the new party, recognized for his discipline, commitment, and ability to articulate communist ideology. Though not the only leader, he soon emerged as its primary figure. Hoxha distinguished himself as a strategist and organizer during the war. He emphasized unity among Albanian communists and rejected cooperation with nationalist groups, such as the Bali Komitar, whom he accused of collaborating with occupiers. This approach led to conflict between the communists and nationalists, but it also strengthened his control over the resistance movement. Hoxha personally took part in organizing partisan units, coordinating guerrilla attacks against Italian and later German forces. His ability to command loyalty and maintain strict discipline among fighters earned him a reputation as both ruthless and determined. By 1943, he was officially recognized as the leader of the Communist Party of Albania. The following year, he became the commander of the National Liberation Movement, which unified many resistance fighters under communist leadership. As German forces began to retreat from Albania in 1944, Hoxha and his partisans quickly moved to fill the power vacuum. Unlike other Balkan countries, Albania was liberated almost entirely by its own fighters, with little direct Soviet military presence. This allowed Hoxha to claim legitimacy as the leader of a victorious national resistance, untainted by dependence on foreign armies. In November 1944, the Communists declared the formation of a provisional government, and Enver Hoxha was appointed Prime Minister, Defense Minister, and leader of the Communist Party. At the age of 36, he had secured absolute control over Albania. The monarchy was formally abolished, and King Zog was banned from returning. Hoxha and his comrades promised to rebuild Albania as a socialist state, free from foreign domination and guided by Marxist-Leninist principles. The immediate post-war years were focused on consolidating power. Hoxha eliminated rivals, both within the communist ranks and outside of them. Nationalists who had opposed him during the war were executed, imprisoned, or forced into exile. Even within the party, those suspected of disloyalty were purged. He created a secret police force, known as the Security, which became infamous for its surveillance and repression. Albania soon became a one-party state, with Hoxha as its unchallenged leader. During this period, Hoxha aligned Albania with Yugoslavia, led by Josip Broz Tito, but the relationship quickly soured. He distrusted Tito's ambitions and feared that Yugoslavia sought to dominate Albania. By 1948, Albania shifted its allegiance to the Soviet Union under Joseph Stalin, whose authoritarian model appealed strongly to Hoxha. Stalinist policies, including collectivization of agriculture, centralization of industry, and suppression of religion, became the foundation of Albania's transformation. Hoxha modeled himself after Stalin, adopting his cult of personality and strict adherence to ideological purity. By the early 1950s, Enver Hoxha had fully established himself as the supreme leader of Albania. The country was reshaped into one of the most isolated and tightly controlled states in Europe. For Hoxha, this was only the beginning of his decades-long rule. He saw himself as the guardian of Marxist-Leninist orthodoxy, determined to keep Albania pure from foreign influence and ideological compromise. His vision for Albania was uncompromising, and his methods would grow increasingly severe as time went on. When Enver Hoxha had consolidated power fully in the 1950s, Albania became one of the most closed countries in the world. He rejected any form of pluralism, opposition, or compromise. The Labour Party of Albania, under his strict control, was the only political entity. Those who opposed him, even within his party, faced imprisonment, torture, exile, or execution. Hoxha carefully created a system of secret police known as Security, whose role was to monitor citizens, silence dissent, and ensure complete loyalty. Albanians lived in fear of being reported by neighbors, colleagues, or even family members. Hoxha initially aligned himself closely with Yugoslavia after World War II, but when he felt that Yugoslav leader Josip Broz Tito was trying to dominate Albania, he shifted his loyalty to the Soviet Union under Joseph Stalin. He admired Stalin deeply and copied many of his policies, building a cult of personality around himself similar to that of the Soviet leader. After Stalin's death in 1953, when Nikita Khrushchev rose to power and began to denounce Stalin's legacy, Hoxha became critical of the Soviet Union. He rejected Khrushchev's reforms and labeled them as a betrayal of true Marxism-Leninism. This ideological rigidity led to Albania's withdrawal from the Soviet-led Warsaw Pact in 1968. Seeking a new ally, Hoxha turned to the People's Republic of China under Mao Zedong. For a period, Albania became one of the strongest allies of China in Europe. Hoxha praised Mao's cultural revolution and adopted similarly harsh policies, shutting down religious institutions and pushing for a completely atheistic state. In 1967, Albania declared itself the first official atheist country in the world, with churches, mosques, and religious sites closed, destroyed, or converted into warehouses and cultural centers. Clergy members were imprisoned or forced into labor camps. Religious practices were forbidden, and anyone caught worshipping faced punishment. The economy under Hoxha remained heavily centralized and isolated. He pushed for industrialization but lacked resources and technology. Agricultural collectivization forced peasants into state farms, stripping them of their land. While some infrastructure projects were built, including factories, railways, and schools, the overall economy lagged far behind other European countries. Poverty was widespread, and food shortages were frequent. Citizens were often forced to queue for basic goods such as bread, sugar, or cooking oil. Hoxha's paranoia grew stronger with time. He feared both external and internal enemies. To prepare for a possible invasion, he ordered the construction of hundreds of thousands of concrete bunkers across Albania. These bunkers, scattered throughout mountains, valleys, fields, and cities, became a symbol of his dictatorship. They drained resources and provided little real defense, but they reflected his constant fear of attack. After Mao's death in 1976, relations with China cooled. Hoxha criticized the new Chinese leadership as revisionist and unfaithful to communist principles. Albania was left without strong allies, isolated both from the east and the west. This self-imposed isolation created enormous hardship for Albanians, who were cut off from the outside world, modern technology, and global culture. Travel abroad was forbidden, and foreign visitors were tightly controlled. Despite these hardships, Hoxha maintained firm control until his health declined in the early 1980s. In 1983, he suffered a serious heart attack, and his condition worsened over the following years. He prepared for succession by strengthening the position of Ramiz Alia, a trusted ally within the Labour Party, to ensure continuity of his policies after his death. Enver Hoxha died on April 11, 1985, at the age of 76. His death marked the end of an era in Albania, though his policies remained in place until the collapse of communism in the early 1990s. At his funeral, thousands of Albanians mourned, but many also felt silent relief, knowing that decades of repression might eventually come to an end. The legacy of Hoxha is one of deep contradiction. On one hand, he provided Albania with stability, literacy programs, and infrastructure development. Illiteracy rates dropped significantly under his rule, and basic health services became more widely available. On the other hand, his authoritarianism, isolationist policies, and severe repression of freedoms left Albania impoverished, fearful, and disconnected from the rest of Europe. His dream of building a pure communist state created immense suffering for his people. Even today, Albanians debate his rule. Some remember him as a leader who defended Albanian independence against foreign influence, while many others view him as a dictator who condemned the nation to decades of isolation, fear, and poverty. The countless bunkers that still dot the Albanian landscape stand as silent reminders of his paranoia and his iron-fisted control. Enver Hoxha remains one of the most extreme communist dictators of the 20th century, a man whose determination to maintain ideological purity turned Albania into the most closed and repressive society in Europe until long after his death.